All right. Good evening, all of you. Good evening. Yes. No one is here. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the response, right? Okay, so before starting the lecture, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Himal Mutunayaka, one of the lecturer attached to the Department of Accountancy, and I am your lecturer who's carrying this subject, right? So basically, what we have in this course outline is you need to cover up some basic aspects of accounting and corporate reporting. So that's what we need to discuss throughout this uh, 15 to I think 13 to 14 sessions, right? So today what uh, I'm going to talk about is the one of the very important topic about the accounting, right? So while I'm doing the lecture, if you have any doubts, any clarification, you can disturb me and you can ask, right? So this is kind of a friendly discussion, right? Rather than a normal lecture. So you can actually disturb. I hope you all of you have some sort of accounting or accounting related knowledge because you all are from the from our faculty. So with that understanding, I'm explaining the concept, right? So if you have any kind of a clarification regarding the things which I have discussed with you, I'm going to discuss with you. So you can disturb me or you can interrupt me and you can ask any questions, right? I'm happy to answer and I'm happy when you are communicated with me, right? Okay, so I will share my screen first. Yeah. Hope you all can see my screen. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Okay. So today I'm going to discuss about the, as I mentioned before, let me take this out. Okay. Right. So as I mentioned before, today I'm going to talk about the conceptual framework for financial reporting. Right. So this is the topic today, right? Conceptual framework for financial reporting. Right. So there are different kinds of conceptual framework for different kinds of subjects. Right. So today what we are going to discuss is financial reporting framework or the conceptual framework, right? So as per your knowledge, so what is the general meaning of the conceptual framework? What that mean? Generally, මොකද්ද මේ conceptual framework එක කියන්නේ? Conceptual framework. මම දන්නවා මේක ඔයගොල්ලෝ A levels වලත් ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවා කියලා. Right? So what do you mean by the conceptual framework? Anyone? Any volunteer? No one. Okay. So the conceptual framework is basically a kind of a foundation, right? Kind of a foundation for the accounting, right? So if we take accounting as a building, right, the foundation of that building is, or the accounting is conceptual framework, right? So we are having a set of framework that we need to stand the accounting on it, right? So that is the basic understanding or basic simply meaning, right? Simple meaning of the conceptual framework, right? So when it's come to the Sri Lankan accounting standards, right? Sri Lankan accounting standards Act number 15 of 1995 has empowered the accounting standard committee to recommend the Sri Lanka accounting standard for the adoption in the country through Council of Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, right? So when it's come to the Sri Lanka, right, the accounting standard governing body is Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, that is passed by Act number 15 of 1995. 1995 අංක 15 දරන පනතින් සම්මත කරලා කියලා තියෙනවා ලංකාවේ ඇතුලේ accounting standard adapt කරන්න සහ ඒවා සකස් කරන්න සහ ඒවා නියාමනය කිරීමේ සියලුම කවුන්සිලින් නැත්නම් සියලුම අධීක්ෂණය කිරීමේ බලතල තියෙන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා වරලාත් ගණකාධිකාරී ආයතනය. නැත්නම් ඉංග්‍රීසි වලින් කියන Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. Right? I think some of you are following the chartered accountancy, right? So you know, right? And this act requires specific business enterprise to prepare and present their financial statement in compliance with Sri Lanka accounting standards, right? So they have mentioned some specific business enterprises, right? So this act is passed by the parliament, right? Parliament. And Parliament proposed, right? Parliament proposed to follow this act, or they have specified from this act some business enterprises, right? So when you are going to this link, you can see those enterprises, right? So according to the 1995 Act number 15, some specific companies, some specific business enterprises like banks, PLC companies, likewise, right? So there is a requirement to follow accounting standards, right? So you can click this link and you can go and search what are the companies, right? I have mentioned those companies, right? The objectives of the standard setting process is to develop public interest, right? So why we need standards, right? Because if we don't have standards, proper standards, people can do anything, right? For example, if you don't have accounting standard, I can account my balances according to my way, and other person can account their accounts according to their way, right? So they can use different approaches, right? So therefore, there needs to be a standard, right? Because public is looking at the accounts, right? Therefore, we need to address the public interest, and we need to address the understandability of the information, right? So we need to provide a transparent and high quality information to the public, right? Because you know, people are looking at the financials and taking decisions, right? At the end of the day, people are looking at the financials and taking decisions. සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සු කරන්නේ financial statement දිහා බලලා තමයි තීරණ ගන්න. Right? Financial statement වල තියෙන numbers බලලා තීරණ ගන්නවා. එතකොට මේ numbers create කරන්න නැත්නම් account කරන්න proper standard එකක් තියෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් මට පුළුවන් මට ඕන විදිහට රෙකෝඩ් කරන්න. තව කෙනෙක්ට පුළුවන් තව කෙනෙක්ට ඕන විදිහට රෙකෝඩ් කරන්න. මෙන්න මේ නිසා තමයි මේ proper conceptual framework එක නැත්නම් proper standard අපිට build වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Right? Right. So in order to achieve the above mentioned basic objective, CA Sri Lanka or the Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka adapt the international financial reporting standards issued by International Accounting Standard Board, right? So you know, according to achieve this objective, because we want specific standards, right? අපිට එක විදිහට නැත්නම් සමාන්තරව නැත්නම් එක විදිහට තියෙන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ්ස් තියෙන්න ඕන. ඒ නිසා CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා නැත්නම් අපි කියනවා ශ්‍රී ලංකා වරලත් ගණකාධිකාරී ආයතනය international financial reporting standards නැත්නම් අන්තර්ජාතික ගණකාධිකරණ ප්‍රමිතියන් යොදාගෙන ඒවා ලංකාවට ඇප්ලයි කරලා බිල් කරලා දෙනවා LKSs නැත්නම් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගිණුම් කරන ප්‍රමිතියන්, right? ඒ කියන්නේ carbon copy of international financial reporting standards. IFRS කියන එක SLFRS කරලා දෙනවා. Only I and S is the difference, right? ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ international issue කරලා තියෙන standards, accounting standard board එකෙන් issue කරලා තියෙන standards ලංකාවට apply කරලා තියෙනවා, right? අර කලින් මම කියපු objectives achieve කරගන්න, right? Standards developed on that basis will help to improve the degree of uniformity, right? This word is very important, uniformity, right? Or we can say in simple word, consistency, right? Consistency of the financial reporting throughout the country, which will also be a comparable globally. right? Why we need standards? Why we need standard is we need to maintain a uniform financial reporting or the consistent or the uniform, right? එක වගේ සමාන, right? Uniformity financial statements. And also our financial statements need to be compared with each other, and also it need to be compared with the global financials. ඇයි අපිට මේ ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ්ස් ඕන වෙන්නේ? එකක් තමයි අපි යුනිෆෝමිටි එක තියාගන්න ඕනේ මේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට්. මම කිව්වා වගේ මට පුළුවන් එක විදිහකට ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් හදන්න, මට තව එක්කෙනෙකුට පුළුවන් වෙන විදිහකට ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට්. එහෙම තිබ්බොත් අපිට කම්පෙයාර් කරන්න බැරි වෙනවා. හැම වෙලෙම ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් එක ෆෝමැට් එකක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකකට හදන්න ඕනේ. right? ඒකට ගන්න ඕන නිසා තමයි මේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ්ස් ඉෂුව කරලා තියෙන්නේ. සහ අපිට පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ මේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් කම්පෙයාර් කරලා තීරණ ගන්න. right? locally වගේම globally. ඒ නිසා තමයි international financial standard same standard ලංකාවට apply කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මොකද අපි follow කරන්නේ international financial standards තමයි පොඩි අකුරක වෙනසක් කරගෙන. right? ඒතකොට අපිට ඕන වෙලාවක අපේ financial statement globally compare කරන්න පුළුවන්. right? right? So up to this point it is clear? Any questions? Yes? Any questions? You all can hear me right? Clearly? Yes? All clear? All okay? No one is answered. All clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Okay, thanks. So better to answer, right? So otherwise, then IASs and IFRSs. As we know, we are having LKSs and SLFRSs, right? In Sri Lanka, we are having for IASs, right? We are having LKSs, right? For IFRSs, we are having SLFRSs. Only the difference is I and K, I replaced by L and K, and I replaced by S, right? Right. So that is the difference, right? The same thing, the same carbon copy, right? Standard that were issued by IACS or the International Accounting Standard Committee, International Accounting Standards, and standard issued by IASB, International Accounting Standard Board, Setting Board, International Financial Reporting Standards, right? So we use both these standards in Sri Lanka, LKSs and SLFRs, right? So when it's come to the LKSs, we are having LKS 1, LKS 7, 10, 41, right? 40, right? 37, right? 33, likewise, right? When it's come to the SLFRs, we are having SLFRs 1, 2, 3, 10, 13, right? 15, 16, and now we are having SLFRS 17 for the insurance contract, SLFRS 16 for the leases, SLFRS 15 for the revenue, right? So we are applying the LKSs and SLFRS in Sri Lanka. Internationally, globally, they are applying IASs and IFRSs, right? Globally, ලෝකයා කට්ටිය apply කරන IAS IFRS ලංකාවේ LKS SLFRS same thing, එකම දේ වචනේ විතරයි වෙනස්, හරි? එකම content එක තියෙන්නේ, right? Right. So this is the history, right? This is the history, right? So in Sri Lanka, we are having LKS, basically LKSs, SLFRSs, right? IFRSs, IFRICs, and SIC, right? So don't worry about these two things, right? I will discuss it in later, right? Right. So you can see when we're looking at the financial position, statement of financial position and income statement or statement of comprehensive income, each line item has a standard, right? හැම line item එකම financial position එකේ income statement එකේ හැම line item එකකටම standard එකක් තියෙනවා. හැම line item එකක්ම record කරන්න ඕනේ යම්කිසි standard එකකට. right? යම්කිසි standard එකකට. හැම line item එකකටම standard එකක් තියෙනවා. PP ගත්තොත් එහෙනම් property plant and equipment ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපිට තියෙනවා LKS 60. Internationally we are having IFRS 60. right? LKS 60. එතකොට intangible ගත්තොත් එහෙනම් අපිට තියෙනවා LKS 38. right? revenue ගත්තොත් අපිට තියෙනවා SLFRS 50. right? එතකොට මේ හැම දෙයකටම ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. එක විදිහකට තමයි රෙකෝඩ් කරන්න ඕනේ. ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම කොණ්ඩේ කපනවා නම් අපිට කොණ්ඩේ කපන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. right? right. යමක් කරනවා නම් අපිට ඒක ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ තමයි accounting කරද්දී ඒකට අදාළව අනුගමනය කරන්න ඕන එක්තරා එක විදිහට තියෙන ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි intangible record කරන්න ඕනේ LKS 38 වල කියලා තියෙන විදිහට. right? මොන කම්පැනි එක වුණත්. leasehold assets නැත්නම් right of use asset අපි record කරන්න ඕනේ SLFRS 16 වල කියලා තියෙන විදිහට. right? So those are the standards. Then this is based on this whole thing based on the accounting framework that we are going to discuss today. Right? That is why I'm saying that it is a kind of a foundation, right? So because it is actually base. This is the base, right? If we take the income statement and the financial position as buildings, the base is accounting framework, right? So in this accounting framework, so we are having LKSs and SLFRS, right? So now what we're going to discuss is accounting framework, right? So I have a simple question. Is the accounting framework is a standard? It is a standard. Is it a standard? Anyone? Accounting framework can standard එකක්ද? Yes. Accounting standard කියන්නේ accounting framework කියන්නේ standard එකක්ද? නැත්නම් conceptual framework කියන්නේ. Yeah, someone says no. Others? Someone says? Someone says? Okay, no. For others? I'm asking a simple question. Accounting framework නැත්නම් conceptual framework එක කියන එක standard එකක්ද? Yes. There are 30 students. Others? No. Yes. Very good. Yes. The answer is no. The accounting framework is not a standard, right? It's a kind of a base, right? Base for the accounting, right? Because actually it is a foundation. In that, we are building our financial positions and the income statement and other part of the accounting, right? Without accounting framework, we can't do anything, right? Therefore, as a first thing, we are studying the accounting framework. Before doing any kind of a standards, we need to identify the base, right? ඔයාලා හිතන්නකෝ අපි building එකක් build කරනවා කියලා, right? ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නකෝ ඔයගොල්ලෝ engineers ලා කියලා. ඒතර ඔයගොල්ලෝ මුලින්ම දැනගන්න ඕන foundation එක හදන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා. එහෙම නැතුව ඔයාට බෑනේ slab එක හදන විදිය දැනගන්න, right? slab එක හදන විදිය දැනගෙන විතරක් ගියොත් එහෙම ගේ හදන්න බෑ. මොකද ඔයා දන්නේ නැනේ foundation එක හදන්න. ඒ නිසා accounting වලත් ඔයා accounting හරියට කරනවා නම් ඔයා මුලින්ම දැනගන්න ඕන accounting framework එක. නැත්නම් accounting වල foundation. Right? So now today what we are going to discuss is the accounting framework. Right? Counting framework. Right? Or we can say conceptual framework. Right? So that is today's our topic. Right? So I'm coming to the topic in that way. Right? The conceptual framework. The conceptual framework is issued by ICASL, or we can say Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, right? Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, right? The purpose is to provide a current set of principles. So they have provide some principles. They are not providing standards, right? The foundation is they are providing principles. What are the what do you mean by the assets? What do you mean by the liabilities? Right. So they are providing some kind of principles, right? Revised conceptual framework for financial reporting issued by IASB in March 2018, right? So now what we are using is 2018 conceptual framework issued by IASB or International Accounting Standard Setting Board, right? In our time, when I'm doing A levels in 2013, right, right, we study a different conceptual framework, right? Different conceptual framework. So there are few differences, but now you need to study 2018 March issued uh, conceptual framework. Yes, Huda, any questions? Someone is unmuted, I think. Any questions? All right. Okay. So that is the history of conceptual framework. Actually, conceptual framework, new conceptual framework issued in 2018 March. From 2018 March onwards, we are applying the revised conceptual framework, right? Before that, we are having all conceptual framework and there are few changes, right? අපි පරණ එක ගැන දැනගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ නේ. දැන් අපි අලුත් තැන ඉන්නේ, right? ඒ නිසා අපි අලුත් දේ දැනගෙන යනවා, right? පරණ එක වැඩක් නැහැ නේ. පරණ උනාට පස්සේ ඒක අමතක කරලා දානවා, right? Right? Right. The conceptual framework, nature and definition. What is a conceptual framework? A patterns of idea brought together to form a consistent whole or frame of reference. Or we can say assets of idea or principle used to plan. Right? A sets of ideas or principles used to plan. Right? මොන වගේ idea set එකක්, principle set එකක් අපි plan කරන්න යොදා ගන්න. right? උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි building එක හදද්දී right foundation එක දානවනේ. එතකොට අපි plan කරනවා මේ ගෙදරට තට්ටු කීයක් හදනවා. මේ ගෙදර කාමර කීයක් හදනවා. right? ඒ අනුව තමයි මගේ foundation එක මම lay කරන්නේ. right? Likewise, when it comes to the accounting also, right? So we need to have some set of ideas and principles what we need to use in the future, right? So that is the framework, right? And then when it comes to the conceptual framework of financial reporting, it's a kind of a system of interrelated objectives and fundamentals that is expected to lead to consistent standards, right? So as I mentioned before, right, we are having standards, right? We are having standards, right? We are having standards. Why need to have standards? We need to maintain the consistency, right? Or we can say uniformity. And we need to compare our financial statements, right? Right? Compare our financial statement. So we need standard to maintain the consistency, right? To achieve this consistency, we need some objectives or some fundamentals or principles, right? To guide these standards, or we need to lay a foundation to maintain these standards in a consistency, right? In a consistent way, right? So therefore, the conceptual framework is a kind of a system of interrelated objectives, fundamentals that is expected to lead to consistent standards, right? Standards consistency විදියට තියාගෙන යන්න අපිට ඕන කරන fundamentals නැත්නම් objectives තමයි අපි basically ඒ වගේ සැදුම්ලත්තු system එකකට තමයි basically අපි conceptual framework එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ financial reporting වල. Also, it is an attempt to provide a structured theory of accounting that prescribe practice, right? So that is a simple meaning of conceptual framework, right? Basically ඔගොල්ලෝ මේ කියන definition එක මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. සරලව මතක තියාගන්න අපේ accounting standards වලට උදව් කරන්න අපි lay කරන foundation එක. right? ඒකදී අපිට තව කියන්න පුළුවන් අපිට තියෙන ඒ lay කරන foundation එකට ඇතුළත් වෙන්න ඕනේ set of objectives, fundamentals අපේ මේ accounting standards consistence විදියට පවත්වාගෙන යන්න. නැත්නම් accounting standards වල consistency එක protect කරන්න. නැත්නම් accounting standards වල consistency එකට උදව් කරන්න. right? ඒක තමයි අපි basically conceptual framework එක කියලා identify කරන්නේ. right? So then the purpose of the conceptual framework, right? Establishes concepts idea that underline the preparation and presentation of general purpose financial report. Answer the following question. What is the objective of financial reporting? So what is the objective of financial reporting? Anyone? What is the objective? ඇයි අපි financial statements or the financial report කරන්නේ? නැත්නම් ගිණුම්කරණය කරන්නේ ඇයි අපි? සරලව ඇහුවොත්. Why? මොකක්ද objective? මොකක්ද objective? Anyone? You can unmute yourself and answer. Why? What is objective? Yes? Sasanki? Chamodi? Devni? Yes? I want to hear your voices. Right? Right? So what is the objective of financial reporting? Anyone? මොකක්ද objective පුතා financial reporting වල? ඇයි අපි ගිණුම්කරණය කරන්නේ? Yes, very good. Basically, we are giving to the someone says give information to the stakeholders for decision making. Yeah, that's correct. Someone says to give information to the outside parties. Yes. And to provide financial information to the external parties. Very good. Very correct. Right. So basically, why we are doing the financial reporting is we need to provide some kind of information, some kind of a financial or non-financial information to the stakeholders or our shareholders, basically most of the time shareholders or stakeholders, right? To take their economic decisions, right? Very important to take their economic decisions, right? ආර්ථිකමය තීරණ ගන්නා අවශ්‍ය පාර්ශවයන්ට financial and non-financial තොරතුරු ලබා දෙන්න එක තමයි අපි financial reporting වලින් කරන්නේ, right? So beyond the financial reporting thing, I will mention one thing, right? So now you know the whole economy is collapsing in Sri Lanka, right? Because of the IMF, we are actually somewhat we have a somewhat relief, right? But actually, when we are looking at the economy, we are not paying debts, right? Actually, if we are going to pay debts, then sometimes the whole economy will be collapsed, right? So the reason for this collapse is because in Sri Lanka, most of the time, people are providing that, or else the corporations are providing false or manipulated financial figures in their financial reports, right? Or we can say it is a financial frauds. Right? Most of the time, people are doing financial frauds, right? Actually, when it comes to the asset there are three kind of frauds, right? Categories of frauds. Asset misappropriation. Basically, asset misappropriation means I can take A4 bundle from the university and go home, right? That is kind of asset misappropriation. And the second one is corruption, right? Corruption and bribery. You know, corruption. When I'm building a building, I take 10% from the building, right? The third one, and very less happen, but it is damage is very severe, right? So when it comes to the world, it is actually 9%, right? The financial statement frauds, right? You can see the central bank fraud and other financial statement frauds, right? Because of these frauds, actually people are suffering for so long, right? So therefore, the reporting the correct amounts in the financial is very important. That is why we need standard. That is why we need conceptual framework, right? So therefore, if you are providing, let's say, if I am providing a wrong number to a decision maker, right? He's taking a wrong decision, or he's taking a wrong economic decision, right? So at the end of the day, that decision hurt to the economy as a whole, right? So therefore, the main objective of the financial reporting is providing, we can say, financial and non-financial information to take economic decisions, right? To take economic decisions. The second question is, who are the financial reports? Who are financial reports prepared for? Let's say, who are the users of financial reporting, right? No, shareholders, so debtors, creditors, right? Banks, right? Other stakeholders, right? Likewise, the users of the financial uh, reports, right? So we basically we can say stakeholders. ඇල්මැති පාර්ශවයන් සිංහලෙන් කියනවා අපි, right? අපේ ව්‍යාපාරය පිළිබඳ නැත්නම් අපි කරන කාර්යයන් පිළිබඳව ඇල්මැති පාර්ශවයන්ට තොරතුරු ලබා දෙන්න තමයි අපි මේ financial reports prepare කරන්නේ. What are the assumptions to be made when preparing financial reports? What are the assumptions? What are the assumptions? මේ conceptual framework තුල මෙන්න මේ කියන questions වලට තමයි answer කරන්නේ. මොකක්ද අපි financial reporting වල අරමුණ? අපි කාටද financial reporting prepare කරන්නේ? මොනවද අපි financial reporting prepare කරද්දී use කරන assumptions? මොනවද qualitative characteristics, right? මොනවද අපි තියෙන elements, right? මොනවද අපි කොහොමද recognize කරන්නේ සහ අපි කොහොමද measure කරන්නේ? මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්න කීපයට උත්තර දන්නවනම් ඔයා conceptual framework එක දාන්න, right? So let's move on, right? Right. So objective of a general purpose financial reporting. What do you mean by general purpose financial reporting? Anyone? General purpose financial reporting. මොකද්ද පුතා general purpose financial reporting කියන්නේ? Yes? Anyone? මොකක්ද general purpose financial reporting කියන්නේ? General purpose financial reporting. So basically we can, when we read the name, we can understand, right? General purpose, right? Generally, අපිට use කරන්න දෙන financial reporting. නැත්නම් financial statements, right? උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් සාමාන්‍ය stakeholders අපි generally නැත්නම් public ලට අපි generally දෙන financial statements. ඊට අමතරව තියෙනවා specific financial purpose financial reporting. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට management decisions ගන්න, right? Company එකේ management decisions ගන්න, operating decisions ගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන financial reporting, right? So conceptual framework එකේ අපි කතා කරන්නේ general purpose financial statements ගැන. මොකද අපි හදන්නේ stakeholders දෙන්න. මොකද internally අපිට ඕන විදිහට prepare කරගන්න පුළුවන්, right? Internally අපේ management decisions ගන්න දී අපිට ගොඩාක් standard අනුගමනය කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ. හැබැයි අපේ stakeholders දෙන්නේ දෙද්දී ඒගොල්ලන්ට තියෙන්න ඕනේ uniformity එක. ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ මේක compare කරන්න, right? ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ මේක compare කරන්න. Therefore we need to follow a specific standard and conceptual framework, right? So the objective of general purpose financial reporting is to provide financial information about the reporting entity, right? That is useful to existing and potential investors, lenders, or we can say stakeholders altogether in making decisions relating to providing resources to the entity. Those decisions involve decisions about buying, selling, or holding equity and debt instruments, providing or setting loans and other forms of credit, exercising right to vote, or otherwise influence management action that affect the use of entities' economic resources. Right? Why we need financial reporting is we need to provide the financial information about the reporting entity. That means our business that is useful to the stakeholders to make their actually the economic decisions, right? Make their economic decisions. Personal decisions නෙමෙයි economic decisions. Personal decisions ගන්න නෙමෙයි financial statements, economic decisions related to providing resources to the entity, right? එක resources provide කරන්න ගන්න ඕන economic decisions ගන්න අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු ලබා දෙන එක තමයි අපි financial reporting වලින් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. නැත්නම් purpose එක නැත්නම් objective එක. right? right. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගන්න decisions ගත්තොත් ඒගොල්ලන්ට පුළුවන් buy කරන්න, sell කරන්න, නැත්නම් hold කරන් ඉන්න. right? shares අපිට විකුණන්න පුළුවන්, තියාගෙන ඉන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඩෙප් ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට් උත් ඒ වගේ පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම අපිට ලෝන් එක සෙටල් කරන්න පුළුවන්, අලුතෙන් ලෝන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඊට මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකේ එක actions වලට අපි ඉන්ෆ්ලුවන්ස් කරන්න පුළුවන්. මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක හදනවා අලුතෙන් ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් ඉම්ප්ලිමන්ට් කරන්න. එතකොට අපි general purpose financial reports දිහා බලලා අපි කියනවා නෑ එහෙම කරොත් අපි loss වෙනවා. right? Likewise, we can actually influence the management actions. Right? So this is the objective of general purpose financial report. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes? All good? All good? කට්ටිය නිදිද? All good? Yes? Clear ද පුතා? Right.
Yes, sir, clear.
Thanks. Okay. So then, moving on with the objective of financial reporting. So we basically know to provide financial information that is useful to the users to making decisions relating to providing resources to the entity. And users decision involve about the, as I mentioned before, the buying, selling, and holding shares, providing, setting loans, voting, otherwise what management influences. So these are the decisions. And to make these decisions, users access to prospects for future net cash flows to the entity, management stewardship of the entity economic resources. So they are looking at those things. To make both these assessments, user need information about both the economic resources claim against the entity and changes in those resources and claims. How efficiently and effectively management has discharged its responsibility to use the entity's economic resources. Right? So to take this decision, the users, right? The users need to look at the economic resources, how it's changed, how it's work, right? And how the management stewardships towards the responsibility towards the economic resources, handling the economic resources. So that's also actually depicts from the financial reporting, right? So that is the objective. Then the second one is qualitative characteristics of the financial statements, right? So this part actually changed based on the based on some changes happened in the 2018, right? So the qualitative characteristics of the financial statement, basically we are having two types of characteristics. So in your exam paper, this part will check, right? Definitely check, right? So what are the qualitative characteristics? Basically, we can divide it into two parts: fundamental characteristics, or we can say very important characteristics. Basically, enhancing characteristics. That means our we are providing information, no? So our informations are providing kind of a enhancing output, right? So they can we can say it is enhancing characteristics, right? So the fundamental characteristics are relevance and the faithful representation. How it is relevant to us and how it is faithfully represented, right? So that is why I explained before about the financial frauds. Because if you are not faithfully representing the financial figures, that means we are providing the false information to the users, because users use those information and take decisions, right? So therefore, we need to faithfully representation. That is a kind of fundamental characteristic. And also we need to provide a relevant information, right? The relevance is very important, right? දැන් මගේ මම ව්‍යාපාරයක් කරගෙන යනවා, මගේ ව්‍යාපාරය ගැන තොරතුරු මම ව්‍යාපාරයක් කරගෙන යනවා මගේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් මම ඉෂුව කරනවා. එතකොට මගේ ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් වලින් මම මගේ එහා ගෙදර තියෙන සිල්ලර කඩේ ගැන විස්තර දුන්නොත් මගේ ව්‍යාපාරය දිහා බලලා තීරණ ගන්න මිනිසුන්ට ඒක අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? The relevance is very important. So these are the fundamental characteristics, very important characteristics to the financial reporting. Enhancing characteristics mean we are providing information, right? We are providing information and how we need to enrich those information. What are the ways how we need to enrich those information that is explained in the enhancing characteristics, right? Enhancing characteristics, right? So I have a small video clip, right? So you can see that video clip and you can understand, right, what I'm saying, right? So let's see the video clip. Right. Hope you all of you can see my screen. Yes? Yes, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can hear, right? You can hear. You can't hear. Okay, wait. I think I can share my. Right. Now you can see.
Plus lots of free materials, so you're welcome to check them out at ifrsbox.com. Well, in 1989, the framework for the preparation and presentation of the financial statements was issued, but then International Accounting Standards Board made amendments to it, and the new, although unfinished framework was issued in September 2010 with the new name, the Conceptual Framework for Financial Reporting. And it stayed in progress for many years, and then in March 2018, the final version was issued with everything completed, so let's take a look. Well, the new framework has 8 chapters in total, and here's the list, and we will take a closer view at each chapter. So the first one is about the objective of general purpose financial reporting, which is to provide financial information about the reporting entity that is useful to existing and potential investors, lenders, and other creditors to make various decisions. For example, about trading with equity and debt instruments, providing loans, and so on. So what financial information shall be reported in the general purpose reports? Well, note that we are not talking about the financial statements yet, because they are subject to Chapter 3. So the entity shall present the information about its economic resources and claims, which is basically a financial position, then changes in economic resources and claims resulting from entity's financial performance and from other events. Well, financial performance shall be reflected by the accrual accounting, so in the periods when the effects of the transactions occur, regardless the related cash flows. However, information about past cash flows is very important to assess management's ability to generate future cash flows. Chapter 2 discusses qualitative characteristics of the financial information so that the information is really useful for its users. And there are 2 types of characteristics: fundamental, and enhancing. The first fundamental characteristic is relevance. So, relevant financial information is capable of making a difference in the decisions made by the users. And here the concept of materiality applies, so the material information should not be omitted. And the second fundamental characteristic is faithful representation. And financial information must not only be relevant, but must faithfully represent what it aims to represent. So, therefore, it must be complete, neutral, and free from error. And financial information shall have both fundamental characteristics. Enhancing characteristics are comparability, so information should be comparable between different entities or time periods. Then verifiability, independent and knowledgeable observers are able to verify the information. Timeliness, information is available in time to influence the decisions of users. And understandability, so the information shall be classified, presented clearly and concisely. And enhancing characteristics shall be applied to the maximum possible extent. Chapter 3 is about the financial statements and the reporting entity. So here we are focusing on.
So here they have mentioned a very important thing, right? So when it come to the qualitative characteristics, right? So it's two parts, right? The first part is explain the relevance and the faithful representation. We need to have both parts, right? We need to have both parts. It is essential, right? But when it's come to the enhancing qualitative characteristics, right? So you try to maintain at least somewhat, right? Somewhat. You need to maintain somewhat of these qualitative or the enhancing characteristics. But when it's come to the relevance and faithful representation, that needs to be there. When you're preparing the financial statement, it is must, right? Now, financial statement prepare කරද්දී relevance and financial faithful representation කියන එක අනිවාර්යයි. relevance කියන්නේ අපි material දේවල් අපි omit කරන්න හොඳ නැහැ. right? උදාහරණයක් කිව්වොත් එහෙම මං දෙන්න තියෙන තිරුතුරු සියල්ලම දෙන්න ඕන. right? relevant වෙන්න ඕන. right? මම දෙන්න ඕන අදාළ තොරතුරු. මම අර කිව්වා වගේ අදාළ නොවන තොරතුරු දෙන්න බෑ. faithful විදියට represent කරන්න ඕන. ඒ කියන්නේ මං දෙන financial numbers වැරදි වෙන්න බෑ. manipulated ඒවා වෙන්න බෑ. right? faithful representation. මේ දෙක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඔයා financial statement prepare කරද්දී satisfy වෙන්නම ඕන. But when it comes to the enhancing qualitative characteristics, as I mentioned before, it's actually enhancing your quality of information, right? It is actually not very much necessary, right? But it is somewhat you need to maintain, right? If you can fully maintain, it is very good. But if you can't maintain, you need to maintain somewhat, right? Somewhat you need to maintain. But when it comes to the other two, it is must, right? Clear? Clear? Is it clear? Yes? Good? Am I කතා කරන්නේ? Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
On the financial statements, not just the reporting itself. So the relevant information is provided in the statement of financial position by recognizing assets, liabilities, and equity. In the statement of financial performance by recognizing income and expenses, and in other statements where you show the information about recognized and unrecognized assets and other elements of the financial statements, cash flows, contributions from and distributions to shareholders, assumptions, methods used, judgments applied, estimates, and other relevant information. Financial reports are always prepared for a specified period of time or the reporting period, and going concern assumption applies. Well, it means that an entity will continue its operations in the foreseeable future and will not liquidate or materially curtail operations. Well, if you're not a going concern, then you should report under different bases, and you can check out ifrsbox.com. I have one Q&A session where I answer specifically how to report when you're not a going concern. Okay, then chapter 3 speaks about the concept of a reporting entity, and that is an entity that must or chooses to prepare financial statements. And this entity can be single entity, one company, or even a portion of an entity, for example, some division of one company, or more than one entities, for example, parent and its subsidiary. As a result, we have few types of financial statements. Consolidated, where parent and subsidiary provide information as a single reporting entity. Unconsolidated, where parent alone provides the financial information, and even combined financial statements if a reporting entity comprises two or more entities not linked by parent-subsidiary relationship. Chapter 4 is about elements of the financial statements, and they can relate to the financial position. Here we have assets, liabilities, and equity. And another elements relate to financial performance, and these are income and expenses. And then the framework defines each element and provides examples. It is very extensive chapter full of details and lays good foundation to build upon. So if you'd like to learn more about it, then please check out ifrsbox.com. Chapter 5 is about recognition and derecognition. Recognition means inclusion of an element into financial statements when it meets the definition, and it links the elements in the statement of financial position and the statement of financial performance as follows. Well, in the statement of financial position, at the beginning and at the end of the reporting period, assets minus liabilities equal equity. And we have also income minus expenses recognized in the statement of financial performance, and contributions from and distributions to holders of equity. And these two items are recognized changes during the period. Derecognition is the removal of all or part of recognized asset or liability from entity's statement of financial position, and framework sets a number of criteria for both recognition and derecognition. Chapter 6 talks about the measurement. So while recognition means when or whether to recognize, measurement means in what amount to recognize. More specifically, the selection of a measurement basis, well, which is a way of measuring monetary amount for elements of financial statements. And the framework discusses two basic measurement bases, which is historical cost, that's basically the transaction price at the time of recognition of the element. And the second one is current value, which measures the element updated to reflect the conditions at measurement date. And here it includes fair value, value in use, and current cost. Framework then discusses many factors to consider when you're selecting the appropriate measurement basis. And the most important is to make sure that the financial information is relevant and provides faithful representation of the financial performance and position. Well, but there are also factors specific to initial recognition, enhancing characteristics, and other that are discussed by the framework in detail. Chapter 7 is about the presentation and disclosure. So presentation and disclosure are communication tools, and in order to make the communication effective, it requires focusing on presentation and disclosure objectives and principles, not the rules, and then classifying the information so that similar items are grouped and dissimilar ones are separated. And here the framework speaks about offsetting, classification of equity, income and expenses, and other items. And finally, aggregating information, but need to prevent too many unnecessary details, and also the opposite extreme, over-aggregation. And then all these concepts are discussed in detail. Finally, chapter number 8 is about concepts of capital and capital maintenance. It is essentially copied from previous version of framework, so nothing new here. Well, framework explains two concepts of capital. Financial capital is synonymous with the net assets of equity of the entity. And under the financial capital maintenance concept, the profit is earned only when the amount of net assets at the end of the period is greater than the amount of net assets in the beginning after excluding contributions and distributions with equity holders. And this financial capital maintenance can be measured either in some nominal monetary units or units of constant purchasing power. Physical capital is regarded as the productive capacity of the entity based on, for example, units of output per day. And here the profit is earned when if physical productive capacity increases during the period, of course, after excluding the movements with equity holders. And the main difference between these concepts is how the entity treats the effect of changes in prices of assets and liabilities. So that was the short summary of the new conceptual framework as issued in 2018.
Yeah, I hope you understood somewhat, right? Right. So that is basic principles they have explained, right? So let's moving on to the presentation with that knowledge, right? So now you are having some sort of idea, right? Okay. So what we discuss is fundamental characteristics and enhancing characteristics, right? So then what do you mean by the relevance, right? What do you mean by the relevance? Relevance is information is relevant if it is capable of making difference to the decision made by users, right? So how we decide that information is relevant, right? That information have some kind of a capability that make or that will make the decision makers decision different, right? Decision making decision එක වෙනස් කරන්න පුළුවන් තොරතුරක් ලබා දීම අපි කියනවා relevant තොරතුරක් අපිට ලබා දෙනවා. නැත්නම් අපේ decision එකට affect වෙන එක. right? relevant වෙන එක. නැත්නම් අපේ decision එකට අදාළ වෙන තොරතුරක් ලබා දෙන එක අපි කියනවා relevance කියලා. And also financial information is capable of making a difference in decision if it has a predictive value or confirmative value, right? So financial information relevant වෙනවා ඒ financial information මත ඉඳලා අපිට future decisions ගන්න පුළුවන්. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට financial information දුන්නාට පස්සේ අපි හිතනවා ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දේ ඊළඟ දවසේ අපේ share price එක උඩයයි කියලා. right? දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ share market එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඇති කියලා මම හිතනවා. right? share market එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඇති කියලා හිතනවා. right? share market එක දැන් CSE කියලා තියෙන කොළඹ stock exchange එක. මේක තියෙන WTC building එකේ උඩ තට්ටුවේ. right? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඕන කෙනෙක්ට ඕන වෙලාවක යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකට ගියාම පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ දකි මිනිස්සු මෙහෙම පුටු තියාගෙන ඉඳගෙන ඉන්නවා ස්ක්‍රීන් එක දිහා බලලා. right? මේ ස්ක්‍රීන් එකේ යන්නේ numbers. නැත්නම් අපි මේක කියනවා අපි financial numbers තමයි යන්නේ. right? right? මේක දිහා බලාගෙන මේගොල්ලෝ decisions ගන්නවා. They are taking decisions. right? Some are selling their shares, some are buying shares, or some are holding their shares, right? So those decisions are taken by looking at these numbers, right? So if these numbers are relevant, that means they can make their future decisions, right? මම දැන් මේ නම්බර් එක දිහා බලලා මම හිතනවා මට තව පැයකින් මගේ ෂෙයා එක විකුණුවොත් මට ලාභයි, right? So if we can take predictive decisions, right? If our information have predictive value, right? So then we call it as relevance information, right? Then the faithful representation. Information must faithfully represent the substance of what it purports to represent, right? Basically, in the financials, the number, say, let's say the PPE is 10,000, right? Right? Actually, this 10,000 worth of PPE needs to have in the company. You need to faithfully represent the numbers, right? If I'm presenting a wrong number, so if I'm presenting a manipulated numbers, then what will happen? The users of the financial information taking wrong economic decisions. So therefore, the faithful representation is very important. And the second one, we can say a faithful representation is to maximize extent possible, complete, natural, and free from errors, right? So it needs to be free from errors, right? If there is an error, what will happen? People take wrong decisions, right? Wrong economic decision, right? දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ලංකාවට වෙලා තියෙන එක. right? right? ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සු ෆයිනෑන්ෂල්ස් දිහා බලලා වැරදි තීරණ ගන්න. මොකද ෆයිනෑන්ෂල්ස් වැරදි. right? එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? අන්තිමට ලංකාවටම සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් කෙලවෙලා යනවා. right? right? ඒ නිසා it is very important that you need to provide faithful information from the financial, right? Or you need to present the faithful information to the users, right? So therefore, the faithful representation is one of the fundamental qualitative characteristics, right? And also, faithful representation is affected by level of measurement uncertainty, right? Measurement uncertainty. So if you can't measure the things, right? Measure the uncertainty, right? It will be affected, right? It will be affected. Then the enhancing qualitative characteristics, right? These four qualitative characteristics enhance the usefulness of the information, right? As I mentioned before, it will enhance the quality of the information, right? It will enhance the quality of the information, right? These enhancing qualitative characteristics. The first one is comparability, right? Comparability means we can compare two people and say that that person is good. Likewise, when it's looking at the financials, we compare the financial and say if I'm investing in this company is compared to that company is good, right? We need to have the comparability ability, right? So financial information need to be compared, right? Right. You can compare the two companies. You can compare the particular one company in year wise, right? Previous year my sales is 200,000. Now this year my sales is 300,000. So you can compare, right? The second one is verifiability, the ability to confirm the information provided by the entity. So you can verify the information. Like if you are providing, I have 100,000 worth of PP, right? So the user of the financials, if they can verify those information through the financials, so that financials information is kind of their quality will be enhanced, right? Verifiability. Timeliness refer to whether the information provided on time so that users can make decisions, right? In government sector in Sri Lanka, right? If you know, if you like, you can search and see when you're going to the Auditor General's department, right? So they are doing audits in 2022 or 21, right? They are auditing the companies financial in 2021, 22 now, right? So they are issuing the report of 2021, 22 figures, right? So we can't take decision based on that current decisions we can't take, right? Because we need timeliness to enhance our information, to enhance the quality of our information, right? To make the useful decisions, right? හරි වෙලාවට හම්බෙන්න ඕන, right? උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් ඔයාලා අපි ගමුකෝ පිරිමි ළමෙක් යනවා ගෑනු ළමෙක් එක්ක යාළු වෙන්න. right? ඒතකොට යාළු වෙන්න කලින් මේ පිරිමි ළමයා ගෑනු ළමයා ගැන හොයලා බලන්න එපා. right? හොයලා බලන්න කාට හරි යාළුවෙක්ට බාර දෙනවා. ඊවල පැත්තේ ගිහලා හොයලා බලන්න. නේද? ඒ යාළුවා ගිහිල්ලා අවුරුද්දෙන් විතර ඇවිල්ලා තමයි තොරතුරු කියන්නේ. එතකොට අර සම්බන්ධයක් නැහැ මොකුත් ඒක නැහැ දැන් වෙන එක්කෙනෙක් එක්ක තමයි සම්බන්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. right? ඒ නිසා අපි තීරණ ගන්න අදාළ අවස්ථාවේදී අපිට තොරතුරු තියෙනවා. right? Therefore timeliness is very important. Right? Then the understandability, right? මේ ඔක්කොම තිබිලා අපිට understand කරන්න බැරි නම්, right? අපිට මෙලෝ දෙයක් තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තම්, right? So the quality that enables users to compare, interpret, and use information, right? As you know, right? All who are using the financial information are not accountants, not financial experts, right? So we need to provide information that all of you can interpret, all of you can understand, right? So therefore, the understandability is very important. If we are providing information that can be understood by anyone, so your information quality will be very high, right? Information quality will be very high, right? So therefore, the fundamental qualitative characteristic needs to be there, right? It is must. But when it comes to the enhancing qualitative category, if there is a enhancing qualitative category, that is good, right? So if we are having an enhancing qualitative category, that means our quality of information is increasing, right? Right? Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes? Clear? Clear or not? I hope clear. Right? No one is answering. Right? Example number 1. The primary qualitative characteristics of accounting information that is not given sufficient attention to the owing to the preparation of financial statement on historical cost basis is what? The primary qualitative characteristics of accounting information that is not given sufficient attention owing to the preparation of financial statement on historical cost basis is what? A, C, B, or D? Yes, you can use the chat box. You can use the chat box. Yes, there are 36 except me. What is the answer, Buddha? The primary qualitative characteristics of accounting information that is not given sufficient attention to owing the preparation of financial statement on historical cost basis. Historical cost basis. What is the answer? Yes. No one, only two. Yes. This is a examination question, right? Okay, I will not provide the answer. Search and right with your knowledge, you can provide the answer, right? Someone says D. So you need to look at this one, primary qualitative characteristic, right? Primary. So they are not talking about the enhancing qualitative one, right? That is primary. Primary means, so we only have the relevance right here. So the answer is the relevance, right? Answer is relevance, right? Answer is relevance, right? Right. The second example listed below are some characteristics of financial information. Which of these characteristics contribute to faithful representation according to the conceptual framework? Faithful representation. What is the answer? A, C, B, D, or E? Yes, very correct. 1, 3, and 4. That means answer C. 1, 3, and 4. Right? 1, 3, and 4. So this is actually a enhancing qualitative characteristics. One characteristic. Right? Right. Answer is C. Right. So I'm not going to discuss all the examples. So these kind of questions will test in your examination, right? MCQs and other written exam, written sort of things. So then now we discuss about the qualitative characteristics. Then I will moving on to the chapter 3 of the uh, conceptual framework, elements of financial statements. What are the elements? What are the things in the financial statements, right? So when it comes to the first one, we need to talk about the economic resources, right? Right. Based on these economic resources, what we need to have? We need to have assets, right? So first element in the conceptual framework of the financial statement is assets, right? So what do you mean by assets? A present economic resource controlled by the entity as a result of fast event, right? I spend some cash and get a land, right? As a result of past event, I have a economic resource that I can control, right? An economic resource is right that has the potential to produce economic benefits, right? The right. For example, I have a lease asset, right? I have a lease asset. Let's say, මම සිල්ලර කඩයක් කරනවා, right? මම සිල්ලර කඩයක් ව්‍යාපාරයක් කරගෙන යනවා. හැබැයි මගේ කඩේ මට අයිති නෑ. මම ලීස් එකට අරන් තියෙනවා. right? ලීස් එකට අරන් තියෙනවා. right to use asset. අවුරුදු 20කට මම ඒක ලීස් එකට අරන් තියෙනවා. right? So I have a right to use this asset, and this asset is generating potential to, this asset has some kind of potential to produce economic benefits. So then this asset, this um, building also become an asset because it is generating economic benefits, right? Economic benefits, right? So that is assets. Then liability. When it's covered liability, that means it is a kind of a claim, right? Or kind of an obligation, kind of an interest, right? Economic resources, in the sense we are having their resources, right? But when it's come to claim, we need to pay or we need to have some interest of third party, right? The first one is liability, a present obligation of the entity to transfer an economic resources as a result of past event. A present obligation of entity to transfer an economic resources, right? So they have an obligation to transfer an economic resources as a result of past event, right? So I have buy some land, right? I have this land value is 100,000, right? 100,000. I have 50,000 worth of cash, right? So other 50,000 I take from the loan, right? Loan, right? So this is I have done in 2022, right? So now I'm in the 2023, right? So results of this past event, right? Results of this past event, right? I need to pay this 50,000. That means my economic resources transfer, right? Right? මම මේ 50,000 දැන් cash වලින් ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට මගේ අතේ තියෙන cash මම ඊළඟ කළා මම මේ liability එක පියවනවා. Right? A present obligation. There's a kind of obligation of entity to transfer an economic resources as a result of past event. Right? Then the equity, residual interest in the assets of the entity after deduction of all its liability, right? අපිට අවසානයේ ඉතුරු වෙන සමුච්චිත interest එක මට සිංහල වචනේ එන්නේ නැහැ, right? Residual interest after deducting all the liabilities from the assets. දැන් මට assets තියෙනවා ලක්ෂයක්, මට liabilities තියෙනවා 50,000. right? එතකොට මම යොදවලා තියෙනවා රුපියල් 50,000. මේක තමයි මගේ residual interest එක. right? ඒකට අපි කියනවා equity එක කියලා. right? equity එක කියලා. right? I know these stuff you know, but you need to learn it's kind of in a comprehensive way rather than you have learned this in the A levels, right? Right. So we are laying that foundation, right? Into first 2 weeks, we are laying that foundation. Then next week in onwards, you need to study standards. Then the next week, you need to prepare some corporate reporting. That means company accounts, right? So those stuffs coming, right? Right. So that is I'm only laying a foundation for that purpose, right? And income, right? So we discussed about the economic resources and claims. Now we are coming to the changes in economic resources and claims reflecting financial performance, right? So what are the changes happen to the economic resources and the claims, right? What basically what happened to the assets and liabilities and equity, right? මොන වගේ changes the asset වලට asset වලට liability වලට සහ equity එකට මොන වගේ changes ධනද ඍණද මොන වගේ changes උනේ කියලා පෙන්වන්නේ income වලින් සහ expenses වලින්, right? Income වලින් සහ expenses වලින්, right? Economic resources in the sense assets, claims in the sense liabilities and equity, right? What are the changes happen to these economic resources and the claims, right? Which is reflected in the financial position, right? So the income means increase in asset or decrease in liabilities that result in increase in equity other than those related to contribute from holders of equity, right? So if the holders of equity or the shareholders invest some kind of a money, right? මගේ pocket එකේ තියෙන රුපියල් 50000ක් මම company එකට දැම්මොත් ඒක මගේ equity වැඩි වීමක්, right? Equity වැඩි වීමක්. ඒක මගේ income එකක් නෙවෙයි. Other than that, if my asset value is increased, right? If my asset value is increased, my liabilities decrease, right? And as a result of this, my equity is increased, then we call it as a income, right? We call it as an income. So that's why I'm saying it's talk about asset increase or decrease, liability increase or decrease, or equity increase or decrease, right? We call it as income and expense, right? So the income is increase of asset, decrease of liabilities, as a result of it, increase of equity, right? And it is not from holders of equity claims, right? So then when it's come to the expenses, it is decrease in assets, increase in liabilities, right? And decreasing the equity, right? Decreasing the equity, right? For example, when I'm paying interest, right? When I'm paying interest, what will happen? What will happen? It will decrease my cash or my asset, right? And it will increase my liability, right? Because my loan include the interest, right? And results the decrease in equity because of this interest payment, interest expense, my profit goes down. Therefore, it hurt to the equity at last, right? So therefore, it is a expense. Decrease in asset, increase of liability, and result in decrease in equity, other than those related to the distribution of holders of equity claims, right? Equity claims, right? Right. So the question number 4, what is the condition which is not compulsory to identify an item as an asset in the balance sheet? The first one is an expected future benefits of an item which is controlled by the business. It has expected future benefits. It is generated as a result of past transactions. It is generated as a result of future events. It's a legally belong to the business, right? So what is the condition which is not compulsory? Which is not compulsory to identify an item as asset. මොකද්ද මෙතන තියෙන compulsory නැති දේ අපි asset එකක් identify කරගන්න balance sheet එකේ. Yes. Someone says D. Most of you are saying D. Let's see the first one. An expected future benefits of an item which is controlled by the business. Yeah, that is okay, right? That is correct. It has expected future benefits. Yes, we are expecting future benefits from the asset because I'm buying a land and I'm expecting future benefits. That is also okay. It is generated as a result of fast transaction. I buy the land by using my cash in the 2021, as I explained before. It is a kind of a past event, right? It is generated as a result of future events, right? It is generated as a result of a future events, right? Right? What you're saying? It is generated as a result of future events. අනාගතයේ සිදුවන සිද්ධියන් නිසා generate වෙලා තියෙනවා. Is it correct?
No.
Then the fourth one or the E, it's legally belong to the business. It's legally belong to the business. Yes? What is the answer? So you have some conflict between these. So actually, the conflicts coming because with the lease arrangements, right? So when it comes to lease arrangements, you feel like it is not legally belong to the you, right? But when it comes to lease arrangement, you have a kind of a agreement, right? So that means a legally binding agreement, right? ලීස් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකක් තියෙනවානේ. එතකොට අපි කඩයක් දැන් අර මම කලින් කියපු උදාහරණයේදී මම කඩේ කුලියට ගත්තාම මට ලීගලි ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා. right? ඒ නිසා මේ උත්තරේ හරි. ෆියුචර් ඉවෙන්ට් එකකින් අපිට ජෙනරේට් වෙන්න බෑ asset එකක්. right? ෆියුචර් ඉවෙන්ට් එකකින් ජෙනරේට් වෙන්න බෑ මට asset එකක්. right? Because of the fast transactions, we are generating a future events or future benefits. Right? So the answer is D. Right. Okay. So then next chapter in the conceptual framework, recognition criteria. Right? Recognition criteria. When a transaction has met the definition criteria and before it can be recorded in the financial statement, the following two conditions must apply. There must be a probable future economic benefits flows. Right? The cost of the value must be able to be measured reliably. Right? So you need to have probable future economic benefits, right? So you need to have probable future economic benefits, right? So otherwise we can't recognize it, right? And also you need to you need to have the ability to measure it reliably, right? Measure it reliably. So therefore, if these two conditions are approved or these conditions are satisfied, right? So you can recognize under the conceptual framework. Recognize the transaction under the conceptual framework, right? There must be a probable future economic benefit flow, and also you can measure it reliably, right? So let's see the example number 5. Let's say you enter into a contract with a supplier to acquire 3 big pieces of machinery, and the contract says that the total price is ₹3,000. For those 3 pieces, 100,000 each, right? And the contract says that the supplier will deliver also a cooling unit, equal separate assets at no additional cost. A big mistake that many companies make it that they do not recognize a free asset at all. What do you think on this case? What is your feeling? මෙතන වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සප්ලයර් එක contract එකකට ඇතුළත් වුණා, right? machine එකක් deliver කරන්න rupees 3000යි machine එකක්. right? එක piece එකක් machines තුනක්. right? pieces තුනක් හිතන්නකො අපි උදාහරණයක් විදිහට රුපියල් 1000 නේ photocopy machine photocopy machines තුනක්. right? රුපියල් 3000යි assume කරන්න. right? රුපියල් 3000ක photocopy machines තුනක් ගත්තා. මේ photocopy machine එක තව separately අපිට A4 bundle එකක් නැත්නම් මොකක් හරි වෙන unit එකක් නැත්නම් අපි කියමු cartilage එක මොකද කියන්නේ just අර drum එක වගේ right ඒකත් separate asset එකක් විදිහට දෙනවා free දෙනවා ඒක right the company එක recognize කරන්නේ නැහැ මේ free asset එක right company එක recognize කරන්නේ නැහැ මේ free asset එක මොකක්ද ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ අපි recognize කරන්න ඕනද නැද්ද right recognize කරන්න ඕනද නැද්ද අපි එතකොට බලන්න ඕන අපි කලින් කියපු recognition criteria අපිට probability එකක් තියෙනවනේ future economic benefits එන සහ අපිට මේ asset එක reliably measure කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි බලන්න. මොකක්ද ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ අදහස? මේ free asset එක අපි recognize කරන්න ඕනද accounts වල? මෙන්න මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න තමයි exam එකේ එන්නේ right? අපි conceptual framework ඉගෙන ගන්නවානේ. ඒකට මේ වගේ අමාරු ප්‍රශ්න තමයි එන්නේ exam එකේ. ටිකක් හිතන්න ඕනේ. මොකක්ද එන්නේ? මොකක්ද ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්නේ? free asset එක අපි කරන්න ඕනද? Yes, think and say. I will give you 2 minutes. Yes, there are answers, right? You have provided some answers. Very good. That's what I need, right? Should consider the free assets also, right? Someone says should recognize a fair value. Should recognize the asset as a without recognition, it's a misrepresentation of company's financial position, right? So in here, what happened is they have provide a asset, right? Provide a let's say photocopy machine, right? Photocopy machine is some other part free, right? So that free assets, right? So you need to get to the fair value, right, or the market value, and you need to incorporate this to the 3,000, right? Incorporate it to the 3,000. Let's say that separate assets is 100,000, right? The value of one uh, cooling unit is 100, right? 100, right? Not 1,000, 100, right? So then you need to add it to the machinery, or else it's if it's coming with the no cost, sometimes you feel like it is kind of a discount, right? So somehow based on these aspects you need to recognize these free assets, right? So that is the basis, right? So there is a link I have provided, right? So you can go to that uh, article and read how they are going to address those issues, right? So you can get the idea, and I'm not going to explain it. These kind of questions will be tested in your examination, right? Not I'm not asking about what are the qualitative characteristics, right? Because you are in second year and you are in university, right? So what are the qualitative characteristics? What are the fundamental qualitative characteristics? It is a A-level question, right? So this is the something we are checking from you, right? You need to think and say, because you are going to become uh, professionals in the future, right? So you need to build your thinking pattern or the thinking ability. So therefore, you need to think, right? So these are the type of question we are checking in your examination, right? Therefore, it is not easy, right? Sometimes you feel like මේ සර් කතා කරන්නේ මේ අපි දන්නේවනේ ඒ ලෙවල් ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවනේ, right? So if you coming to this kind of example, right? Sometime you may be uncomfortable, right? Why it is that? Because you don't know how to apply this conceptual framework. So the application part is not there. All the theories you know, right? Right. All right. So you need to read this article. That article explain about the whole thing, right? So underline accounting assumptions. The next chapter. Financial statements are going normally prepared on assumptions that the reporting entry is going concern and will continue in operation for the foreseeable future. The going concerns means our business we think that, we assume that our company or our business go for foreseeable future or continue for foreseeable future, right? With that underlying accounting assumption, we are preparing our financial, right? If we are not go for foreseeable future, so then what will happen? We need to prepare the financial accordingly, right? So we can't keep current and non-current portion. We only have current portion if we don't have going concern, because after 1 year time, we discontinue our business. So there is a no going concern, right? So every time when we are preparing the financials, right? When we're preparing the financial, we are preparing the financial based on the assumption of going concern, right? And it is assumed that the entity has neither the intention or nor the needs of enter liquidation or to cease trading, right? Going concern කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? කම්පැනි එකට කිසිම intention නැහැ, කිසිම අදහසක් නැහැ. එයාගේ business එක ඉවර කරන්න නැත්නම් නවත්තන්න, trading නවත්තන්න සහ එයාට කවදා හරි දවසක possibility එකක් තියෙනවා liquidate වෙන්න. නැත්නම් bankrupt වෙන්න. right? නැත්නම් බුන්නත් බවට පත් වෙන්න කිසිම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැති සහ කිසිම intention එකක් නැහැ කියලා අපි assume කළා තමයි මේ going concern assumption එක build කරන්නේ. Going concern කියන්නේ we are assuming that the entity has neither intention nor the needs to enter liquidation or to cease trading, right? So if such an intention or needs exists, the financial statement may have to be prepared on a different basis, right? So if there is a such kind of intention, we need to prepare uh, any other way, right? As I mentioned before, we can't keep current and non-current portion. So we need to have the current only, right? Current assets only, current liabilities only, right? Because we are discontinuing from next year onwards, right? So therefore, the going concerns assumption is very important. We are preparing our financial based on the going concern. We are assuming that, right? Only assuming. Right? I don't know what happened, but we are assuming that it's not discontinued, right? It's not discontinued, right? If so, the financial statement describe the basis used, right? Right? If so, if not, sorry, if so, the financial statement describes the basis use. If there is an intention of liquidation, intention of stopping trading, you need to mention the basis. What is the basis you have used, right? If you are not following the going concern assumption, you need to mention the basis, right? You are following without the going concern, right? In some annual reports, sometimes because of the liquidation, they are saying that we are not following the going concern assumption, right? And so they have to mention that if they are not following the going concern assumption based on the conceptual framework, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? Clear about the going concern assumption? Yes? Yes or no? Yes or no? ළමයි තේරුණාද? තේරුණා නැද්ද? Yes or no? Okay, no worries. No one is answering. Right. So the component of financial statements. So we are having component of financial statements, statement of profit or loss or other comprehensive income, financial position, changes in equity, cash flows, and notes of the financial statements. So these 5 elements or the 5 components, right? So we will cover up in these sessions, right? In the following sessions, we will cover up, right? The financial question is how our financial question presenting and how my income and expenses and how my profit is, right? And changes in equity, that how it's changed, my equity, how it's changed, and how much I receive as a cash and how much I pay as the cash flows, and other notes, right? Other non-financial information, right? Non-financial information about the low cases, about the other factors, right? So those things coming from the notes, right? So these are the 5 major components of financial statement. Financial statement set together in a component part, right? Comprehensive income, financial position, changes in equity, cash flows, and notes, right? Right. So then, when it comes to the accounting framework, as everything has two sides, right? You know, when we looking at everything as a coin, there are two sides, good and bad, right? So when it comes to the accounting framework, there is a strength and weakness. The first strength is allows standards to be developed on consistent basis. That is why I'm talking in the previously. So we can maintain the consistency if we are having an accounting framework. Can protect standard setters from political interference, right? So if you don't have a framework, politician or the political interfering coming and say, you can do like this, right? So that is, we can protect, right? So the weaknesses is it is open to question whether a single framework can be appropriate to needs of all users of financial statements. So that is a kind of a question in modern world, right? So there is a single framework for all of us, right? Whether we can address all the needs of the users. We are having different kind of users. We are having shareholders, we are having lenders, we are having debtors. Like us, we are having different kind of users of financials, right? So we need to look at whether every one of uh, financial statement users, the everyone's issue or everyone needs is addressed from the single framework. So that is the weakness. This is an examination point, right? Examination point, right? And it is not clear that the existence of the framework makes the task of preparing and implementing standard any easier, right? So there is a kind of a uh, uh, there is a kind of a blind positions that implementing standards are not much easier because of these frameworks, right? So that is also a weakness, right? Okay, so that is actually what we need to discuss from the conceptual framework area, right? So you are having some examples, right? So let's see one example. A company has a big amount of sands or other construction materials. So let's say sands and other uh, construction material like metals and all. There is a great opportunity to get these sands at a very good price. Therefore, the company peeled up a big stock. However, a company was not going to use the sand immediately in the construction process. The sand could have stayed in the warehouse for many years. What to do in this case? What you need to do? කම්පැනි එකක් සෑන්ස් ගොඩාක් අරගෙන තියෙනවා නැත්නම් වැලි ගොඩාක් අරගෙන තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ෂන් එක කරගෙන යන්න. එතකොට මේ වැලි වල ගණන් එකපාර වැඩි වෙන නිසා මේගොල්ලෝ ලොකු ස්ටොක් එකක් එකපාර එක දිගට වැඩි වෙන නිසා ලොකු ස්ටොක් එකක් අරගෙන තියාගෙන ඉන්නවා. හැබැයි මේ ස්ටොක් එක දැම්මම මේගොල්ලෝ කන්ස්ට්‍රක්ෂන් ප්‍රොසෙස් එකට යූස් කරන්නේ නැහැ. වෙයාහවුස් එකේ දැන් ගොඩක් දවස් ඉඳන් තියෙනවා. මොකක්ද අපි කරන්න ඕනේ මේ සෑන්ඩ්ස් වල? මොකක්ද අපි කරන්න ඕනේ? මොකක්ද කරන්න ඕනේ? Think and say. This is based on the conceptual framework. Yes. What we need to do? What we need to do? Think. I will give you around 2 minutes. So what is the answer? What to do in this case? මොකද්ද මේ සෑන්ඩ්ස් අපි කොහොමද මේකට කියන්නේ? සෑන්ඩ්ස් කොහොමද අපි accounting එක record කරන්නේ? We learn we need to search if it is probable that future economic benefits are coming, right? And you can measure this reliably, right? So if these two recognition criteria is established, then we can recognize this as a asset, right? So then the next question is where we can recognize. So this is for the production of service, right? Production, right? Production, right? Production, or we can say when it's come to the recognition, you need to look at the purpose, production, rental, or admin. Right? So this is used for production of uh, construction of building, right? It is a production, right? And it's uh, continue for years, right? More than 1 year, more than 1 year. That means we can recognize this as a non-current assets, or we can recognize this as a PPE, right? PPE, right? We can recognize this as a PPE, right? Correct or wrong? Yes? Yes or no? According to conceptual framework, we recognize there's a probability that future economic benefits can come, and we can measure this reliably. So based on that, we can recognize this as asset, right? Because we own that, right? Right. And then you need to look at under LK 16, right? LK 16, whether this is used for the production, rental, or admin, right? It is actually used for the production. Then you need to look at the period. It is actually continue more than 1 year. So then you can recognize this as a non-current asset. So under PP, right? Right? Clear? Clear? Is it clear? Is it clear? Clear or not?
No.
So the next example, right? The next example, imagine you run a library. There are thousands of books there. Each has an acquisition cost of few dollars, whatever currency, and it will be definitely be used for more than one period. Should you treat each book separately and as a result recognize it in profit or loss when acquired, or should you treat all books as one item of PPE? What to do in this case? How to treat the small item in large amounts? Right? What do you need to do? Right? So they have some thousands of books in the library, right? And one book gives cost of few dollars, right? Let's say $3 to $5, right? And it's also continue for more than one period, right? So what you need to do is whether you need to record these books separately or aggregately, right? In your and or profit or loss or PP, right? What you need to do? Think and say. Think and say. Just think and say. So what do you need to do? So you can do, right? There's a no specification in X. It's a LKS 16, right? So what you can do is you can, if you can aggregate the values, so you can recognize it under PP. Otherwise, if you are choosing to record it as a one item, right? So you can do it like that, right? So most probably that books are generating revenue to the library, no? Right? So therefore, it is good to look at the purpose, and based on that purpose, you can recognize it, right? So these are the some of the examples, right? So there are some few examples as well, right? So if you have time, you can do those examples as well, right? Sometimes one example of this will in your exam paper, right? So therefore, you need to focus on these things, right? So before winding up the session, any questions? Any questions? So this is actually very easy topic, right? Always we are learning, when you are learning accounting, you need to learn the conceptual framework. So I think you know the basic concepts, right? So I need to add something to that, right? So any questions before winding up? Any questions? All clear? All clear? Yes or no? So if you have any questions, right? So you can meet me in the accountancy department, right? I'm in the accountancy department, so you can meet me anytime, not anytime. So most probably in the evenings, because in the mornings I do have lectures, or else you can email me to this, say, I will send you everyone in meeting. So this is my email. I will send my email. Or if you can drop me a message, so then if I'm having any kind of time, then I will definitely reply you. This is my number, right? So don't call at night, but if you have any kind of a question relating to the accounting, so you can ask, right? Okay, any questions? Any questions? All good? All understood? Right? මොනවාරි ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවද? නිහඬතාවයෙන් දෙකක් තීරණය කරන්න පුළුවන්. එකක් තමයි කිසිම දෙයක් තේරෙලා නැහැ. නැත්තම් ඔක්කොම හොඳටම තේරිලා. right? ඔය දෙක තමයි කියන්න පුළුවන්. right? මම හිතනවා දෙවෙනි එක කියලා. ඔක්කොම හොඳට තේරිලා කියලා. right? all right. okay. Yeah, we will be given the recordings, right? I will check with the department and release the recording, right? Right, all right. So let's wind up the session then. So thank you very much for participating and actually engaging with the lecture, right? So I hope you understood something, right? So if you have any clarification or if you want to talk about the accounting, right? So you can drop me an email, right? Most preferred way is drop me an email, so then I can reply to you, right? So okay, let's meet in another day, right? So thank you very much and have a good day, good night.